So President Donald is on the rampage. And I don't blame him a bit. We've got people pouring in. Whatever he was doing, it wasn't working. You can blame him for the fact that when he had both houses of Congress, he didn't move. I think that was a mistake. He made such a big fuss about this during the campaign that he should have stuck to that. He should have put it right up ahead, but he got what he could get, which was the tax cut instead, because I just don't think he could move the Congress. I think the Congress is paralyzed on this issue. It's because they don't all agree on how to do it. They can't compromise. They all are serving their base and not serving the country. It really is. It's shameful. So, he's been throwing out threats. He's going to shut the border, but he can't do that. The economy would crash. So he backs off on that. He's going to put tariffs on Mexican stuff, but not yet. Whatever he does, he runs into a wall. So apparently he has now turned to Stephen Miller, who is his big hardliner on this, policy guy. And he apparently said to him, Stephen, you are now in charge of this issue, which caused Ilhan Omar to say that Stephen Miller is a white nationalist, another Jewish white nationalist. These Jewish Nazis are all over the place. I don't think they're thinking long term. Jewish Nazis are they're not far-sighted enough. It's like the Japanese joining the white nationalist Nazis for World War II, not thinking ahead. So Stephen Miller, I don't know what is white nationalist about the guy. He is trying to protect the border. It's so annoying when people say, and this is really what Miller has been talking about, what still Stephen Miller has been talking about, is protecting Western civilization. Really drives me crazy when you say protect Western civilization and everybody says, oh, you're a white nationalist. You wouldn't know white nationalism was bad if it weren't for Western civilization. There has never been a civilization, another civilization, that thinks that race is not the main way to categorize people. Only Western civilization thinks that wrong. They think it's wrong because St. Paul said so, because there's no Jew or Greek in Christ. They think it's wrong because the Roman citizens of the Republic fought to get full citizenship, even though they weren't actually Latins, they weren't actually Romans. They fought to get citizenship until everybody was included. That's one of the reasons the Republic fell. That's why they think white nationalism is bad, because of Western civilization. You have to protect Western civilization. One of the ways you do that is that making sure that people come in, subscribe to the values and attitudes of Western civilization. So this whole thing about immigration, we should have no borders. What's the matter? Why are you so stingy with your beautiful country, which stinks? That's their attitude. How can our country be so evil that it won't let in all the people who want to get in because the country's so great? That's basically the left's position. It's all nonsense. So Trump has fired Kirstjen Nielsen, and I have to say, I think she seems to be taking the fall for the fact that things aren't working. I mean, I don't know what she can do. They have been hemmed in on every side. It's Congress who needs to close these loopholes that let people come in. All you have to do is cross the border and say, I want asylum. If you have a kid with you, they don't want to put you they don't want to confine you, because after 20 days, they have to let the kid go. So, and then everybody says, oh, you're separating the children. So everybody knows if you come in, walk in with a kid, you can steal a kid, you can borrow a kid, you can rent a kid, walk in with a kid, say, I want asylum. There's nothing they can do. They release you. You never come back. We never see you again. So Nielsen sent her resignation, but obviously she was forced out. She said, despite our progress in reforming Homeland Security for a new age, I have determined it's the right time for me to step aside. I hope the next secretary will have the support of Congress. Good luck with that, and the courts in fixing the laws which have impeded our abilities to secure America's borders and which have contributed to discord in our nation's discourse. Our country and the men and women of DHS deserve to have all the tools and resources they need to execute the mission entrusted to them. Here she is outside her home talking to the gathered press.
I just want to thank the president again for the tremendous opportunity to serve this country. I'm forever grateful and proud of the men and women of DHS who work so hard every day to execute their missions and to protect the homeland. I really look forward to continuing to support them from the outside. I've spent the last 24 hours since yesterday talking with government officials, with administration officials, members of Congress to ensure a smooth transition. As you know, DHS has a vast array of missions. I want to make sure that we continue to execute them all with excellence through the transition. I share the president's goal of securing the border. I will continue to support all efforts to address the humanitarian and security crisis on the border. And other than that, I'm on my way to keep doing what I can for the next few days. So thank you all for being here.
Okay, so here's what I mean about whether Trump can stand up to the press. And, I know many of you just love Trump and think he's going to roll over his opponents. But let me just make an argument that may not, you may be a little too optimistic right now. Let's see, we'll see. But remember, the problem they had was that Trump didn't change the rules about separating families. He changed the rules about who gets detained, okay? Because if you come in here and you're a criminal, they turn you around very quickly and they send you back even if you have a kid with you. But if you come in with your kid and you ask for asylum, because this is the loophole in the law, they have to give you a hearing. And it takes a longer time to get that hearing, right? Because the courts get backed up. So they put you in a containment cell, and after 20 days, according to the law, they have to get the kid out of the cell. So he's separating families, right? Trump did not create that law. He did not change it. All he did say was you no longer get a free pass if you have a kid with you, because people were using kids to bluff their way in. So he changed that rule. They keep saying in the paper, even in the Wall Street Journal, which usually gets these things right, they keep saying that he had a child separation policy. He didn't have a child separation policy. He had a detaining asylum seeker policy so that they don't slip into the country and vanish, which is what they do. Now they're coming over in such numbers that they're busing them into the interior. You think we're ever going to see them again? No, of course not. So that was the rule that he changed, okay? And Kirstjen Nielsen was the face of that policy. Listen to the press. Here is a montage of the press. I think this is from Newsbusters. Yeah. This is cut number 2 of the press reacting to her resignation.
You almost have to feel sorry for Nielsen. I don't feel sorry for her, but almost, because, she is willing to violate the dictates of humanity, morality, and ethics.
For the rest of her life, people will look at her and think, oh, that's the woman who put children in cages. That's the woman who broke up families across the border. And you know what? They'll be right.
I really don't have much sympathy for Nielsen.
Just to be clear, I don't have sympathy for Kirstjen Nielsen.
For those of us who've spent a career in Homeland Security, there's not a lot of sympathy here for her.
So I don't have sympathy for her.
Some are saying good riddance.
She may be leaving government, but Kirstjen Nielsen will forever own the child separation policy.
Let's not forget, it was on her watch, too, that tear gas was fired across the border.
Kirstjen Nielsen will always be the face of Donald Trump's family separation policy.
Her legacy will be that many courts did find several of the major policies that Kirstjen Nielsen put in place to be unlawful.
The face of the president's anti-immigration push.
She never let the facts or the underlying data get in the way of an extreme Trump administration policy.
People saying, we're glad Kirstjen Nielsen is gone. These policies have been so horrible.
She's going to get what she deserved.
That last guy's Jeffrey Toobin. That's the guy, I seem to remember Jeffrey Toobin got his longtime mistress. He was married. He was sleeping with somebody else. He got her pregnant. He refused to support the baby until the baby got a DNA test and they proved it was his. And then finally he was so he's making moral pronouncements on Kirstjen Nielsen. This is just appalling hypocrisy. It's pure hypocrisy. It means nothing. But let's not forget, right, when they pulled that baby crying routine, which they did when the babies were being separated. And by the way, I don't want to see babies separated. I don't want to see these children. I mean, I feel for these migrants. I think the law needs to be changed. It would take Congress 10 minutes to change the law to close the loophole. It's not Trump's fault that this is happening, and you cannot have a country without borders, and you can't protect your civilization and your people, our people, who matter more to us than their people because they are ours. You can't protect their jobs. You can't protect their services. You can't protect their communities without protecting the border. So all these people who are crying their crocodile tears for these children at the borders, and I'm not saying, that's not a sad situation. It is, but they are just doing it to get at Trump. And when it happened last time, and when they showed the babies crying, and it breaks everybody's heart, right? When they show the babies crying, Trump backed down. He did, and he just could not stand the bad press. Well, now he's furious. It's his watch. People are pouring in. He made such a big deal about this during his campaign. He needs to do something. And apparently he wants to put, the other guy he wants to put in charge is this Kevin, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Kevin McAleenan, I think. He wants to now put him in DHS. and they're going to have to fire people because the law says the undersecretary has to take over for Kirstjen Nielsen. So they're going to have to do this big thing. Plus, it looks like he's written to Homeland Security saying expect big changes. So he's going to make, he's actually going to go through and kick some butt and throw some people out, do his Donald Trump, you're fired routine that he's practiced for many years on television. Here is, and that makes perfect sense. If you've got people pouring over the border, if nothing's being done, if the policies aren't working, it makes perfect sense to have a shakeup, to get things changed, to make things different. Let me just show you, just to show you where the press is going. And this is MSNBC, and I hate to use MSNBC because they are not dishonest. They are an openly leftist station, but there is a place where you've gone so far, it becomes absolutely ridiculous. So they bring in this former FBI investigator, Frank Figliuzzi, his name is, right? Here he is talking about what it means for Donald Trump to be firing people, to have a shakeup in his department.
What we talked about was a possible analogy between what we're seeing in the president and studies of violence and acting out, particularly workplace violence. And we talked about the journey and pathway to violence when we see people using language of despondency, lashing out, blaming others, obsessive compulsive attachment to one issue and the inability to get off of it. That in that case, it would be the border and security on the border and immigration. And so the question we have to ask ourselves from a behavioral sense is, are we watching a president essentially on his way to what we call a flashpoint? And are we now beginning to see him act out in the form of purging and mass firing and completely not listening to any logic? When people say to him, the law or policy is such and such, and we would be violating the Constitution or the law, and he simply dismisses it and fires people and keeps doing it. Are we essentially watching a workplace violence incident play out at the highest level of our government? And is he acting out now? And where does this go if I'm right about that?
Well, thank you, Dr. Figliuzzi. I mean, that is amazing. It's workplace violence. It's workplace violence for him to fire his staff. I mean, just like they're saying it's obstruction of justice for him to fire James Comey. Talking about Trump having a flashpoint. Who at this point would not have a flashpoint? It's not just the press. It's the Democrats who won't do anything. It's the Republicans who can't get together to do anything. And it's the judges, the Obama judges, who are holding him up, changing the rules, overturning law, making law, essentially, saying, oh, no, if there used to be a rule that if somebody came in asking for asylum, he had to meet a certain level of obvious fear that it was reasonable for him to be afraid. And the courts are just saying, we throw that out because anything that will wrong foot Trump, we are willing to do. Just watching the press, just keeping your eye on the press. It's like watching, you talk about his psychological analysis of Donald Trump. How about a psychological analysis of the press? Because it is like watching a madhouse. I hate to put on The View, but The View has gotten to be kind of representative of what is happening on the press. Here is Meghan McCain and Joy Behar going after each other on the question of immigration.
Is a hardline issue for people who live in border states. Many friends of mine, this is the number one and only issue. And if we sit here and act like there isn't a crisis, that it's crazy people living in border states that think that there's a crisis, is a winning ticket for Trump.
Like I just said, this guy who's coming in wants to help those countries. That's the way to solve the problem. Keep them there happy or whatever. Solvent, give them a house, give them food, help their children.
Give a Nicaraguan
stop the crime rates.
Well, we've had a bunch of liberal guests who do not want to send in aid at all.
I listen to you. Let me just finish.
Yeah, part of your job is to listen to me.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's what's not going to happen today. We're not going to do this.
But when Whoopi Goldberg is the peacemaker, you're in trouble. I just want to see. I'm like catfight. I think they should come on in kind of wet T-shirts and just wrestle around in the back. That would be a view I would watch. That would be something I could actually look at. I'll probably hear about that comment, but do I care? No, I don't. But just here she is, Joy Behar, and all right, she's not anybody's idea of like the brilliant commentator, but she's talking about us paying for people to have houses in Nicaragua. I mean, come on, this is what is it about? What is it about these people that they do not think about us. They do not think about Americans. They keep some of the guys on CNN are saying, well, we don't like the browning of America. As if America were a white country. When did that happen? Did somebody shuffle off all the different colored people in America while I was asleep or something? I mean, this is an incredibly mixed up country, incredibly racially mixed, because we let everybody in, because we welcome everybody. That's not going to change. Nobody cares about the. The only person speaking sense about this on the left. You'll kill me for this. I know people will get it. Barack Obama. Barack Obama, he gave that I speech in Germany the other day, but he did have this remark. It's almost as if, like, now that he doesn't have to make excuses for his failed policies, now that he doesn't have to, solve the cognitive dissonance of the fact that everything he thought he knew was actually wrong. It's like he actually, a little bit of common sense comes out of his mouth. Now, this is a kind of long cut because the guy can't speak without a teleprompter. But it's worth listening to. It's worth just seeing Barack Obama, talk sense. It's like watching a dog walk on his hind legs. It's not that he does it well. It's the fact that he does it at all. Listen to this.
If you're going to have a coherent, cohesive society, then everybody has to have some agreed upon rules. And there are going to have to be some accommodations that everybody makes. And that includes the people who are newcomers. The question is, are those fair? Do they, should we want to encourage newcomers to learn the language of the country they're moving to? Of course. Does that mean that they can never use their own language? No, of course that it doesn't mean that, but it's not racist to say, if you're going to be here, then you should learn the language of the country that you just arrived at, because we need to have some sort of common language in which all of us can work and learn and understand each other. It gets more sensitive, obviously, around religious issues. That becomes more challenging, and I don't have, simple solutions to all of that. But I guess what I think we have to do in order to push back against just, what are clearly racist motives of some, we can't label everybody who is disturbed by immigration as racist.
Obama's a white supremacist. Who knew? Who knew Barack Obama is a white supremacist? Did anybody else play this clip? He says people should learn English, and he says the people who oppose mass immigration aren't necessarily racist. There's some in there, but they aren't necessarily racist. And he brought up, when he was talking about religion, the subtext to that is maybe it's not such a good idea to let people come into the country whose idea is they want to slaughter us all on behalf of Allah. I mean, that's basically what he's talking about. And he says he doesn't have the answer. It's a complicated question. It is a complicated question. I couldn't believe those words. If I had known he was a white supremacist, I'm ashamed of my country. I mean, that we had, for 8 years, we had this Ku Klux Klansman in office. When Spike Lee was talking about the Black Klansman, obviously it was a coded reference to Barack Obama. It's amazing. Let me finish this way. When I talk about can Trump stand up to the press, I'm just talking about the fact that they are going to go after him with all guns blazing. And last time, when they went into their crying baby routine, last time Trump folded. We have to remember that, because it's going to be really interesting to see if he does it this time.